squad.
And welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Bubba the Bat Flip, episode 91. Going to recap your week in FAAB once again. It was a busy week. It was a hectic week after a hectic MLB trade deadline, so it'll be fun to recap all that good stuff. You can find myself on Twitter at BDentric and my co-host, as always, on Twitter at BatFlipCrazy. Toby, how we doing, man?
Bubba, I'm going to go with an okay right now. I'm wearing a new hat. I got a couple new hats. I'm going with the Cincinnati Reds, which represents how awful I am at putting together a bullpen and picking closers. It's just, I feel like it's very appropriate for me, the guy who added Chris Stratton in a number of different places for varying amounts of FAAB, only to find out right before the show that he's coming in the seventh inning and that David Bednar, who I dropped in at least one main event in order to add Chris Stratton, maybe is the closer instead of Chris Stratton. So there's that. I've got that going for me. But outside of that, outside of my absolute and utter futility and the fact that anything I say about bullpens you probably shouldn't listen to, which probably isn't the best way to introduce a podcast. Outside of that, I'm doing great, Bubba. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. It's another beautiful week, a beautiful day. Just watching all the pitchers pretty much suck and all these bats just hit. I'm just like, I'm saying we got 2 more months of this because it's August 3rd and we literally have like 2 more months to do this. And I'm like, these pitchers are just getting worse and worse. It's getting bad out there right now, and all these guys are hitting, and it's been a long year already. It's going to be a long 2 months trying to grind this one out because you and I, we don't stop for football like other people will. So we're going to go till the end because I think I can speak for you on this part, and you can tell me if I'm wrong. I'm willing to at least fight to go from like 6th to 4th by the end of the season. Like I want to finish as high as humanly possible. So we're going to grind this one out, but it's been setting lineups has not been fun. Like we even talked about it beforehand, guys like Wilmer Flores, Rhys Hoskins, and guys that had injury designations, but they weren't on the IL and there's no reports. And then it looks like they're not in the starting lineup. So you bench them and then they come in and pinch hit and they're playing on Tuesday. So it's just like so much fun, Toby, so much fun right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like the motto for my season is probably going to end up being 4th place. So that's exciting for me as well. But I agree. I mean, you got to grind it out. Sign up for these leagues. There's a decent amount of money, a lot of money at stake, depending on what your leagues are. And I think it's from the league standpoint, like it's good when everybody's competing and trying their best. And so that's one thing. But then also just from a personal standpoint, trying to grind that out and do the best you can. Right.
Yes.
So
most definitely. And you can tell we said it the last few weeks, like people are starting to focus towards football. Like this Thursday night, I think it is, we have the Hall of Fame game Thursday or Friday. We have preseason football starting this week it's coming. Like the shift is taking place. And we had this massive week in FAAB last week, Toby, like a massive week in FAAB with all these different options, varying price scales. Sunday was nuts with Ortega and Hernandez and these guys going off to raise prices and redo bids and whatever. And there are still so many guys that went with no secondary bids. I'm sitting there just going, wow, this is stunning. So it's going to be interesting to see where things go. But let's, before we go player by player, with such a crazy week, like it wasn't FAAB-a-palooza with all these prospects per se, but it was a lot of closers potentially because of the trades, a lot of new guys getting to hit because the Cubs and Nationals traded everybody and so many other situations. How did you approach this week? Because I know you spend a ton of time on FAAB Saturday night and into the wee hours of Sunday morning. I spent some time Saturday, a lot of time on set. Like it was the most probably time total I spent the whole time. So how did you go about it with the process you have, like to narrow it down at least in your head of what you're focusing on?
Yeah, I mean, as is well documented on the beginning of this show and also throughout the seasons, I've been struggling a lot for closers and to get saves. And that's probably the biggest weakness across all of my teams. And so this was a really big opportunity to try to identify who the closers were. It was an interesting situation because it seemed like the one guy, and I know they've gotten kudos already, but Phil and Rob, shout out to them for getting Kyle Finnegan a week early. That was huge for them, but it was pretty clear that he was the closer. And outside of that, there was a lot of questions because you had Chris Stratton, who, you assume gets the save if Bednar does not blow the lead there in the 8th inning, because he was kind of the next guy up, if you will. You had Dylan Floro, who did not get a save opportunity, but just based on usage, like Bednar being used in the 5th and the 6th, even being used to open games, and Floro being really good from a results perspective recently and also pretty decent from a skills perspective. And the way that the game that they didn't, I think it was either tied or they were down by 1, the way that they kind of had the usage there, that he was probably the guy. You had Spencer Patton, who had an opportunity to get a save and blew it. So you were wondering, is he going to get another shot or is he not going to get another shot? Or maybe Joe Barlow, who looked really good. And so just looking at all the permutations of what those closers were, and like you mentioned, it was not set on Saturday night. It was not set on Sunday. So I put together some lists, and just based on what had happened at the trade deadline, it impacted not only closer value, but then also opening up some value or not value, but players in hitters, right? And trying to figure out, just based on a couple lineups after the trade deadline, what would be moving forward. Like, Edward Oliveras was added on Sunday and he was in the lineup, but we know that he's been shifted around a lot by the Royals. So is that going to stick? Hilliard has been getting some run on the Rockies. Is that going to stick? Ortega on the Cubs. I actually picked him up last week, which I guess we won't talk about. I think we talked about last week, which I felt good about, like, for once, and so just really like trying to figure out what all these permutations were. Where were they hitting in the lineup? Do they look like they have regular playing time? All of those things, and then to try to organize it in a list, also based on your needs, right? Because that's one thing I think we oftentimes, and I'll consider myself on this one too, is like, oftentimes we're like, oh, I need to get that player. He's really good. But it's like, is that what you need? Is that
on a limited budget? Is that what I should be spending my money on right now?
Totally. Yeah, like in one league, I'm not doing well in saves, but my ratios are just as important as my saves. And so in that league, I actually didn't go after Stratton, who's struggled with his control. And in that particular league, I went over, with Cole Salser instead, because from a skills perspective, he's looked a lot better. Wasn't sure if he's going to get access to saves all the time, but it seemed like he might get at least a share of that. So all of those things need to factor into, I think, your decision-making process in determining that. And that's what I tried to do. And the good news is I failed miserably. How about you? What were all the considerations and things that you were thinking about as kind of the day progressed, and what a trade deadline that was? I mean, I know obviously they're players and they're people. And so just getting moved around like everybody was is kind of intense. But also, it reminded me of some other sports and the crazy goings on that they have, and the deadlines or NBA signing, things like that.
Yeah, because for MLB, the trade deadline for the most part is kind of boring. Like, there's like 1 or 2 names that are getting to be like, hey, Manny Machado's getting traded. Where's he going to go? Probably to a big team. This is what's happening. But all 30 teams made trades. Some trade teams didn't make trades they should have made, looking at you, Rockies. But then there's other teams that sold everybody. And then teams were improving here and there and it was just one thing after another for about 48 hours. It kind of started Wednesday-ish into Thursday and just went all the way till the end. It was great to watch on your phone or whatever you were watching it on, and kind of try to keep track of. It was wild. It was really good stuff. So I liked that a lot, but it was tough. Like you said, like I had people asking me questions like, hey, should I pick up this person or this person? And I'm like, they're just now starters. Like you said, see what happens this weekend. Like, where do they play? Like, it's like we're trying to make assumptions on literally like no data on some of these guys. Like, what are we doing here? Like, I don't know. I can't tell you. It's really tricky. Like, these are the guys I'm looking to target, but like you said, you kind of make a list of your team needs and you go from there. And it's like we say for questions on the show, it's when you ask a question, like, give us your leagues, like your settings, all that stuff. Don't just send me like, hey, should I pick up this person or this person? Like, do you need this person? Do you not? Like, it goes back to what you're saying. Yeah, cool. He hit 3 home runs on Sunday. Do I really need Rafael Ortega? Maybe you do, because the outfield sucks this year. So it's kind of nice to have this open up. But it's like, don't just do it because, if you have like 7 outfielders, don't do it. Simple stuff. So things along those lines. But and it was definitely team dependent. There were certain leagues where I didn't try for any saves. And there are other leagues where I went there are certain leagues where I went more for guys like Luis Patino and some other starters for cheap, and went that angle and got some bats and didn't even look at a closer. And then there's other leagues where I went closer heavy. So very dependent on that line. Still stuck to my tasks, like, of not overspending. Like, my highest acquisition was Finnegan and TGFBI for like 34 or something. So we'll talk about that. But most of my guys I got Clippard in one league for like $6. Like, it was all over the board. But it was very much staying disciplined because I don't have a ton of money, but also doing just what my team needs. Because I'm just like you, and I think many of us are. It's certain times you go, okay, this like you load up the page and it shows all these guys that are available, and you're like, wow, this guy's really good. Like I should get him on my team. But like especially this time of year with limited budgets, you got to sit back and go, maybe I don't need that Snickers bar right now or something. Like so, like I don't need this. Like this is just not worth it. Let's go do this. So that's kind of the basis of it. It was wild. I literally had my laptop out while I was watching the Olympics Saturday night with my wife, and I just spent 2 hours on it doing that, put it away. Then the next day, the 2 naps my daughter took, I came in, I got back on my computer, and it was just like, and then I finally, like at 3:30, I just like closed it. I said, I'm done. Like whatever's done is done. I'm just not messing with it anymore. Whatever happens, happens. But it was wild. Like I was overall happy about it because I felt like when I was done, I'm like, I spent so much time for me, for my standards, and I'm like, I'm going to get nobody. I'm just not going to happen. And it worked out okay. So we'll see how it works. But let's get into some of these players because there were some fun ones. And the fun part about this is they're going to be cool right now. At the same time, I wouldn't be shocked if any of these guys are not relevant in like 3 weeks because they're not like the biggest of names in the world. And we've seen this too many times, Toby. So it's going to be like, here we go again. But the most added player after he hit 3 home runs on Sunday, and you were ahead of the curve the week before. No, he's the second most added player. First most added player.
I was going to say.
Yeah, I had to skip. I skipped. Second, he's the second. First most added player was the Robot and Rob's big get because they're the only 2 in the entire main event that added him. Kyle Finnegan went in 418 leagues, as high as 217. I guess honestly, I was surprised people had so much money left over, like with all these high bids. To be truthful, but he went for as high as 217. Hey, I get it. Out of all the closers, Toby, he at least felt like the one guy that was like locked in right now. Out of all the closers out there that we're talking about, so I was all for it. Like if you could get him, get him. I was in the $30 to $40 range. That's all I had, but that was the only guy I went that high on. So I got him in 1 league. What's your thoughts on Finnegan? Because it looks like it's his deal.
Yeah. So Finnegan, I got in 7 leagues this weekend.
Nice.
Which is mostly, I mean, part of it is a product of that I generally had a lot of FAAB left in a lot of my leagues. And also I was lucky there was not super competitive bidding on him in a lot of my leagues. I think the most I paid for him anywhere was $64, something like that.
Not bad.
I agree with you. He seemed like the one guy that was a sure thing. He got the 2 saves. He also got a win. And so it looked really good. I mean, and then with Washington and he wasn't available because he pitched, I think 6 out of 8 and 3 out of 4. And so he wasn't available yesterday and the Washington bullpen just absolutely imploded. And then, what looked like his main competition in Wander Suero got demoted today to AAA. And so it looks like he's got a tight grasp there. The only challenge will be, I mean, the Nats, they're not an awful team. I mean, they still have, they're not good, but they still have Soto. They still have Bell, who hit another bomb today.
Yep.
So they still have some hitting, and I think Yadiel Hernandez is a little underrated.
Yep.
They're going to be decent. The question is going to be how many saves they get. Finnegan in general is like pretty blah. I mean, if you look at his metrics throughout the course of the year, he's been fine. He's struggled a little bit with his control, but that's actually been an area that's improved over his last 15. His walk rate is under 7%, but the K rate's only 23% or so. And so he's kind of fine. He's got the job and he's fine. He's not anybody to get excited about. And so that's great. And so if you got him, I think you got to be pretty happy because what you really want to do in this situation is, in an ideal world, maybe there's a David Bednar, Toby, who's got both the skills and maybe the role that you can lean on. But a lot of the times, we're dealing with bullpens that have been kind of ransacked, And so I think Finnegan was kind of the best of the bunch. And we'll see if that ends up being the case. But I was pretty excited to get him.
Yeah, he's made some really, really nice improvements over the season. On June 8th, he got destroyed. Gave up 5 runs in a third of an inning. That's why I feel like the thing with relievers, you look at ratios and stuff, it just takes one bad outing and just skews the whole thing. So his last 19 outings since on June 9th forward, he's given up 5 run runs in 19 innings pitched, basically a strikeout per inning, only 6 walks over that stretch. Like you mentioned, he's worked on that a big amount. 2 wins, 2 saves, 8 holds. Definitely because he's only this closer now, so he was doing a great job setting up and getting things done. Everything looks pretty good. He's a big fly ball guy, though, so that's kind of still a little always concerning. In this era of baseball, he limits the hard contact, which is really good. And I think there's a lot to like potentially with a guy like Finnegan, and in reality, and with what we keep going through on this this closer carousel, he's got the job. You mentioned Suero's gone. I don't see who's gonna overtake him once Hudson was shipped out. That was like the only other concern I had. So I think we're good to go with Finnegan, and he looks like he's tweaked something that's working pretty well for him. And I'm with you also. Is like, yes, the Nats sold and they're going to be bad. I get it, but they're still not that bad. Like, they're still going to be good. We've seen it these last 2 nights. They've been competitive. They're going to be in games. The division they're in is like weak right now, really, really weak. So they'll be better than people think. All right, Chicago Cubs. Now we go to the second most added player, Rafael Ortega, who Toby added last week because he's smart like that. But he was added in 279 other leagues this past week for $140 max. I got him in a few leagues for like sub $20. I was very happy about that. I thought there was no chance after 3 home runs on Sunday that I would get Rafael Ortega. Not a chance. And it worked. So that was very nice. But you got a guy like Ortega, Toby, who's leading off pretty much every day for them. He's hit safely in 5 of his last 6 games. A little bit of power, a little bit of speed, 4 steals. That's very attractive. So what's your thoughts on Ortega going forward? He's probably playing over his skis now, but I think he's still going to be pretty serviceable.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, the reason why I had added him previously is that he's actually been hitting leadoff every single time he plays for the Cubs for a couple weeks now. And I think a major question that will determine his value is whether or not he is in a platoon or not. He was not previously in a platoon, but the last lefty that they faced, although did they go against Freeman today?
Freeland, yeah, and he let off.
Oh yeah, and he still let off.
I was worried about that too.
Yeah, I was worried because I think the last lefty they faced, he sat, but he had faced the 2 lefties previous to that. And so what I was really encouraged by over the weekend was with that type of performance, it's hard for them to keep him, with what else they're throwing out there from a lineup perspective, to keep him out of there. I agree. I mean, he's always been kind of the speedster, kind of higher batting average guy. But what was really interesting to me, and I really honestly only realized it because I already had him on my team, so I wasn't doing like a deep dive on him necessarily. After he hit the 3 home runs, is if you look at his StatCast metrics, he already has 7 barrels this year, so an 8.2% barrel percentage, and his max exit velocity of 109.5 is about 2.5 miles per hour harder than any other previous hit that he's had in baseball. And it's actually pretty good, especially for a guy who doesn't have a huge frame. And so when you look at that coupled with just, he's always had better than league average contact, 84.4% over his career, 80.4% now. He's also been pretty good from a plate discipline perspective. I mean, here's a guy who has every opportunity to be a major contributor, hitting first, getting a ton of plate appearances. The only question I had is whether they were going to platoon him or not, and they didn't. And man, it's fantastic. I think he can be a real difference maker because that NL Central has some pretty atrocious teams now. With I guess he can't play the Cubs himself, but just from a pitching perspective, it's like the Brewers, and then everybody else, the Reds have a couple good guys, but everybody else is just kind of blah. And so really nice, really nice pickup, I think, for folks to get. I was very, very excited. I got him in one other league, a really big league, a really important league, which was exciting.
Well, and the reason I think the platoon's off, like it was off, that would have been his platoon guy, center field versus lefty. Looking at roster resource, there's nobody there. So
good call. Good call on that.
There's nobody there right now unless they make some other move, which why would you – like you have 2 months, see what the kid's got. Let him hit a lefty. Who cares? Like he's got nothing to lose. So I think that's what you got going for him there, and that'll be very intriguing to see because you look at his minor league numbers, he's always shown speed, 15-plus steals or 14-plus steals many years, and the power started developing in 2019, 21 homers in AAA with the Braves. So – there's definitely something in that bat that is very, very intriguing to see how that plays out. So I'm definitely excited about some of those shares, and we'll see how that one keeps playing out. All right, this one, it was interesting because Tyler Clippard started closing a couple times before Soria was even traded. And I'm sitting there going, man, you Diamondbacks really like to screw things up, don't you? Like, don't you want to keep his value high while you have it? I guess their idea is maybe he can't blow a save, so we'll just put him in the 8th inning. But Soria gets dealt. Clippard's the closer now. He picked up in 256 leagues, as high as 217. I know I grabbed him in at least one, if not two leagues over the weekend. So it looks like he's the guy. Another similar to Finnegan. Like, I think Finnegan's a better pitcher, but I don't see anybody taking Clippard's job either. So what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I really liked Clippard, actually. I mean, from a skills perspective, I thought he was very good. I mean, talk about consistency. So here's Clippard's last 3 years: 2.90 ERA, 0.85 WHIP, 2.77 ERA, 0.88 WHIP. This year, 0 ERA, 0.8 WHIP. Swinging strike rate, 13.9%, 12.3%, 13.2%. K- walk, 20.3, 22.4, 15.8. So in every single season, he's been better than league average skills-wise, and in his results and his production as well. And it was pretty clear, what you said, that Clippard was going to be the guy. I actually forgot to mention him in my little diatribe at the beginning, but Clippard was my number 2 guy on lists. So it was Finnegan, and then it was Clippard, because I felt like I knew he had the job, and I actually think he's a pretty good pitcher. So again, I think he's a really nice pickup, and he's already got that one clean inning yesterday. Wasn't a save opportunity, but obviously you'll take it.
Yeah, no doubt about it. We'll see how he keeps going. He's only pitched in 5 games so far this year. I was wondering why I didn't hear about him most of the year. It's because he came up late. So we'll see how that one keeps going. But it's going to be his job. Diamondbacks might have a save chance right now, as the Giants are sucking against Bumgarner, who's been actually pretty darn good of late too. So Diamondbacks will make things really annoying for quite some time. All right, one of the trades that made many people scratch their head at first blush, but after the trade deadline is completely done, I can kind of see what the Mariners are doing now. They acquired Abraham Toro from the Houston Astros, picked up in 240 leagues for as high as 155, and Toro has been absolutely outstanding. He went deep again on Tuesday night. He's hit safely in all but 1 game since the trade. Now has, I think, 3 home runs since the trade, stolen a bag or 2. He's been very, very productive, getting regular playing time of late. He's hit safely in 9 of his last 10 games now as well. Young player, once a highly touted prospect. He's 24 years old, still probably finding his peak, which is quite the more the trade happened, the more I started digging in and going, wait, why didn't I care about him when he was on the Astros? Oh, that's right. Bregman's going to come back eventually. Now no one's in his way. This is very intriguing. Switch hitter, middle of the order. I had him kind of ranked a little bit ahead of the Ortegas and the Yadiel Hernandez for me. But again, it comes back to team dependence. Like I mentioned earlier, outfield's so bad, I kind of had to go on certain ones to go get the outfield pieces, where in reality, in a vacuum, I wanted Toro out of that group of guys. What's your thoughts on Abraham Toro? Because I'm actually pretty excited about what I'm seeing from him, and I think these last 2 months could be pretty fun with him.
Yeah, I thought it was an absolutely brilliant move by Jerry Dipoto. I do not understand all the. I mean, I understand it, it's emotional.
Well, I was weirded out by trading your closer while you're in a playoff race, but then once everything was all done, it made sense to me when I started seeing the years of control.
That's what I mean. Is
then it all made sense in the end.
And I totally get it, because obviously players are human beings and there's emotional attachment, and when somebody invests themselves and is doing really well for a team, and then you trade them to the arch rivals, it's difficult.
Yeah, at least trade them the Central or something. Yeah.
However, if you in Dipoto's shoes, he's got to understand where they are right now. They are overperforming dramatically based on the talent level that they have at the major league level. And even with that, I think this percentage chance that they made the playoffs was 6%. And so he was able to trade a guy who they were able to pick up for, not for free, but to a 1-year contract last year at the peak of his value, for a 24-year-old who's been better than league average at every single stop in the major leagues. He's 24. He's already been in baseball for 2 major league seasons, parts of 2 major league seasons. He's got above league average contact rate. He's got above league average plate discipline already. He's got speed. He's got power. He's a switch hitter. That to me is a brilliant move. And then to go out and get Diego Castillo, who I would argue is a better reliever than Graveman is, particularly if you look at Graveman's skills in the last little bit and the regression that's likely coming there. I mean, what a fantastic move. And you've got Castillo now for 3 more years. Just fantastic. And so with Toro, I think I lost Bubba, guys. I don't know how to host this show myself. I'm a little scared, but I'm going to continue to go. And most of you are probably listening to this on the podcast, so you can't see that Bubba disappeared here. But hopefully he will come back, or else I will just continue to talk endlessly. So with Toro, I mentioned before, above league average contact rate. He's actually doesn't have above league average O swing, but I think he has historically in his minor league career. Yeah, he's got double-digit walks in most of his career. So it sounds like Bubba's internet just went out. So I'm going to text him and let him know that I'm going to keep on going and hope that he can join me. So Bubba's internet just went out. So I'm flying a little bit solo right now. So we're just gonna kind of roll with it, guys. So help me out. Abraham Toro. I absolutely love the move for Seattle, and it not only gives them a guy that they can use moving forward, but also somebody that they might be able to trade in the future, because he is, as was mentioned, there's a lot of teams that were very interested in acquiring his services. So a big fan of Abraham Toro there. Next up on the ad list was Edward Oliveras, and he's been obviously a popular name in a lot of leagues. But the Royals have been kind of adding him to the big league lineup, sticking him in there for a game, dropping him down. It's like a meme at this point. They've been adding and dropping him so frequently. But with Oliveras, the power speed is super intriguing. He's 25 years old. In his major league career, he actually only has one stolen base. He had his second stolen base today, which was a really nice, a little boon there for folks who added him. But when you look at his projection rest of season, Zips has him, well, let's go with the Bat X has him in 68 plate appearances with 2 home runs and 2 stolen bases. So if he gets 250 plate appearances the rest of the way, you're looking at a guy who could contribute, 6, 7, 8 steals and 6, 7, 8 home runs, potentially even 10 and 10 for the remainder of the season, especially when you think about the Royals and their propensity to run on the base paths, and with a decent batting average, 249. So Oliveras is a really nice addition, I think. And then with Andrew Benintendi getting injured today, I didn't see exactly how serious it was. If Bubba was on the podcast, what I would be doing right now is researching while he was talking about it. But with Benintendi getting injured, it's another opportunity for Oliveras to be in the lineup every day. I think there was some concern that with Mondesi being on his rehab stint, that he would come back at short, that Nicky Lopez would move to second base, and then Whit Merrifield would move to the outfield. But if Andrew Benintendi is out for any significant period of time, then what will end up happening is Oliveras will have a spot regardless, with the Royals having traded, Jorge Soler early in the season. So I think this could be a real game changer of a pickup, honestly, particularly with the access to playing time for Oliveras. Again, projected for a 249 batting average, just really, really nice. I'm ecstatic to have picked him up in a few spots, and the price was decent. And Bubba is back.
Man,
Bubba is back, ladies and gentlemen.
I'm going to kill Spectrum.
He's on the podcast here. I managed to talk about one player. I talked about Edward Oliveras.
That's cool.
Bubba, you had been so proud of me. I talked about Benintendi getting injured. I don't know what the injury is, but how that frees up a spot, and Mondesi possibly coming back, and Nicky Lopez moving to second, and Merrifield moving to the outfield. But now Oliveras has a place to go to, and how he's brilliant.
Well done. I knew you could do it. I'm so happy about this, and I'm glad you talked about Oliveras, because I don't have any shares except in best ball leagues. So I got nothing to add to that one, really. I think he's very good. Like he should have been up for a long time now, but the Royals kept messing with that. So I think it's going to be very fun to see what he can do. And did you end up getting him in some teams?
Oh yeah, I got him. I think on 3 teams. 2. 2 OCs. I should look. I think I got him in my super, which is really cool.
We'll recap it at the end when we talk about our pickups and stuff. So
that's true. But I did want to bring up one comment here, which is from William E. He says, I feel sick now after I dropped Toro to keep Brendan Rodgers and activate Ketel Martel. I would say, William, there is nothing to feel sick about that. Yeah. Brendan Rodgers, I have been incredibly impressed by Rodgers. He's not on any waiver wires, so we haven't talked about him, but he's demonstrating elite contact, strong plate discipline. The dude is, over 600 plate appearances. He'd be on pace for 25, 30 home runs. He's stealing bases. I would have had Brendan Rodgers well ahead of Abraham 100%. Toro on waiver wires.
Like half his games in Coors the rest of the way.
Yeah, totally. He's phenomenal.
Yeah, don't feel bad. And plus, Ketel Marte, if healthy, which has been the biggest issue this year, he's a top 5 or 6 second baseman or whatever, and he gets outfield eligibility. So, yeah, you made the right move. That's why it comes back to league dependency there. Like, would you prefer Toro over those guys? Probably not, really. I'm excited about Toro, but Brendan Rodgers, I guess the biggest issue with Brendan Rodgers is just the Rockies getting their stuff together and playing him. That's the biggest issue with Brendan Rodgers. So I'm with you there. I think that's a very, very you're okay. You're very, very much okay there, William. I wouldn't worry too much about that. But all right, let's go to the next guy here. Toby did a phenomenal job trying to help it's been about a week since I had an internet issue. We're back, so that's good. But we're going to move on here. Kyle Farmer, like I had to, because I do DFS content every day. It was the only reason I knew how good he was playing. And then all of a sudden he's batting third for the Reds on the regular. And Joey Votto's hitting home runs and driving them in. It was crazy. But if you look back to Kyle Farmer right now, he came into tonight's game on a 10-game hitting streak with a couple home runs, couple doubles, couple triples. Like, he's doing everything right now. And it's crazy. Like, I didn't get any shares of him. I had bids in, especially because his multi-position eligibility is tremendous. Second base, shortstop, and third base, I believe, for Kyle Farmer. So that's like the little things we've talked about many times on this show. Like, I cherish guys like that. That almost puts you above certain guys. Like, that's definitely a tiebreaker for me situation. So I was intrigued with him. Didn't get him anywhere. But I'm also kind of like hesitant on, is this for real with Kyle Farmer? So what's your takes on Farmer? Because I didn't win any bids on him.
Yeah, I mean, Bubba, you may not remember, but we've actually talked about Kyle Farmer before on the show earlier on in the season, just because he was getting playing time. He's got that multi-position eligibility, and he's demonstrated some really good contact skills, and I do want to give a shout out, since we're giving shout outs to people who have identified talent like, Rob and Phil did. I know that Yancey posted today about how Matty Wood had been pushing him to pick up Kyle Farmer in some DCs, way earlier on this season, which is impressive. And Matty's obviously familiar with Farmer from his time with the Dodgers. He was part of that Yasiel Puig and that famous Puig, Farmer, and who am I forgetting? Somebody else for Josiah Gray.
Was it Winker?
No.
It was an outfielder. Scotty Schebler.
Was that who was?
It was an outfielder. I'm pretty positive.
Okay. It was Puig. Puig was the main guy going over to the Reds, I believe. And Farmer went over there. So he's familiar with him. But shout out to him for kind of knowing about Farmer. But yeah, I've had Farmer, and I also have him in a 20-team dynasty league. That just because that position flexibility is really nice on the bench. So yeah, he's been good. I mean, he's playing way over his head, obviously.
Here you go. So it was Puig, Matt Kemp, Alex Wood, Kyle Farmer to the Reds for Homer Bailey, who they quickly dropped, Josiah Gray, and Jeter Downs.
Yeah, and then they traded Jeter Downs to the Sox. For in the Mookie Betts deal, right?
That's right. Yep.
And then they traded Josiah Gray now to get Trey Turner and Max Scherzer. So what did
they turn Puig into those three guys?
Yeah, because Wood was a free agent after that year, and Kemp. We know Kemp didn't.
There's a reason why some teams stay good.
Yeah,
when you make moves like that, where literally it's never as simple as just saying you got those three guys for Yasiel Puig, but in a vacuum, you got those three guys for Yasiel Puig, and that is that's ridiculous.
It's crazy. Farmer I like, and it's just one of these situations where he's playing every day, which is something huge. He's the type of guy, and Willie Castro is similar. Luis Urias before the trade deadline, which has absolutely crushed his value. Was kind of like this, but yeah, second base, shortstop, third base eligible. So really covers your entire infield almost. And so if you have him on the bench, it's really nice because especially with COVID and everything that's happening right now, just injury wise, and with the end of the season coming up, he's a guy that you can kind of plug in if any of your guys get injured. I think that's probably his best utility at this point, in like a 15-teamer or a 12-teamer, but ride it while he's hot. He's got the stroke going right now for sure.
And they're hitting him third in front of Otto, Great American Small Park. Like everything's perfect to ride while it's hot. And then you said Luis Urias, Chase Peterson. I was riding those guys while they were hot. The trades kind of made both. Like COVID got Peterson, he's back. You let him and Urias, they're not playing every day now, so it's making it tough. So guys like Farmer are playing every day. Yeah, ride them. Like I'm all about that with you. So I didn't go heavy on him because again, team dependency, but I liked him a lot. Like he was one of those. I was kind of bummed in the end that I didn't go heavier on him, but I needed outfield badly. We won't go too deep on this, but Eloy Jimenez got picked up everywhere now. That's pretty much a no-brainer situation, so we'll move on that one. Michael Wacha got added.
Bubba, I did get Eloy in 2 places. Really? I didn't even think I was going to get him.
Really? Well, what did you bid?
Well, I got him in for 178 in one league. Okay. And in the other bid, but the thing is, it's all contextual, right? I looked at the teams in front of me. Like in one league, I got him for 217, I think, or 227, something like that. I had 386 bucks, I think, in that one. So I had a decent amount, but there was guys above me that had 450, 560. And so I was like, well, I'm going to toss this out here. I'd love to have Eloy on my team. And somehow he didn't have it. I think it was the injury. The injury was perfect timing.
Well, the reporting on the injury was horrible. No one was saying anything about it. It was just totally. Oh, he's another day off, another day. I'm like, how bad is the hamstring? Talk to me, people, or groin, whatever it was. Talk to me.
Yeah. The challenge with the 178 bid is of all my leagues, that's probably the one that I needed him the least in. So I was like, I even texted with the person I share the league with, and I was like, hey, I'm not going to be super aggressive on Eloy this week, just because we don't necessarily need him. But lo and behold, I ended up getting him. So hopefully that doesn't actually end up screwing me over by not giving me enough FAAB to manage the rest. I have $70 left, so it should be okay. But I like to have a little bit more FAAB, as you know.
I would too, but the way things have gone the last few weeks with no runner-up bids and stuff, I think 70 is gonna be pretty darn fine. The way things are going, a lot of $1 and $2 bids, you'll be totally fine. I have a feeling. Let's talk Michael Wacha. He got picked up in
Wacha.
He got picked up in 180 leagues, as high as $39, mainly because he had a nice 2-step on paper this week, and he came in pitching overall well. Kind of a 5 innings, most starts. He was getting stretched out finally. He had Seattle, and I think he has Detroit over the weekend. Seattle thumped him. So we can do Captain Hindsight stuff now, but going into the week, Toby, I wasn't in on Wacha. I was in on some other guys. What were your thoughts on Wacha?
He was my top starting pitcher I think, because you have Seattle and Baltimore. I think both of those are at home, I want to say, for Wacha. And when you look at him, his velocity was up. He had just dominated the Yankees lineup, which he really seems to like the pitching against the Yankees. That's the problem with a lot of these Rays pitchers is they pitch really well against the Yankees and the Red Sox when you don't have them in the lineup. Brian Yarborough feels like the exact same guy, where it's if he's starting at Baltimore, he's going to get destroyed. But if he's pitching against the Red Sox or the Yankees or the Blue Jays, he's terrific. So anyways, enough of my my whining. So I really liked Wacha a lot. And this is just one example of how this game works, right? Yep. In an ideal world, I had Wacha at the top of one of my bid lists for starting pitchers. In an ideal world, I would have got him. If you had said, do you want to have this player at this cost? I would have said, absolutely. But somebody outbid me by $3. And so instead of having Wacha and that god-awful start he had yesterday, I don't get what I wanted, and I don't have him on my team. And I'm doing better as a result of that. So there's so many of those instances that happen across the season both ways. And in a lot of ways, that's what determines, if you start in the middle, that's what determines when you have a really good season versus when you have a really bad season, is how many of those just kind of random chance situations happens that you either benefit from or you get hurt by.
Yeah, no, definitely. And that's kind of I wouldn't say I didn't bid on him, but it was definitely $2 bids or something. But it was surprising to see Seattle do the damage they did, but I don't fault anybody for grabbing him. Like there's guys we talked about in the past where I'm like, guys, like this wasn't like this is a crazy 2-start. What are you guys doing? Wacha at least understood where the head was at and what he's doing, and usually even if he gets hit a little, he's not crushing you type thing. And he can go out and deal 5 or 6 versus Baltimore, and you won't even feel it come Sunday. So it's not over yet. He didn't get gombered. It just wasn't pretty, to say the least. We talked about David Bednar already. Let's talk Rowdy Tellez. Picked up in 165 leagues, as high as $58. He's finally getting consistent playing time versus righties. He's crushing it. He'll sit versus lefties. That's one of the big reasons Eduardo Escobar got added. He can play third base versus righties. He'll play first base versus lefties most likely. But still, they played 13 righties in a row starting this week. So he's going to get a lot of playing time. He's hitting with power. His one thing we've always loved about Tellez was the barrel rates, like the StatCast metrics, doing that just fine again. So when you have a situation like this, we usually talk about like Giants, lefties versus right-handed pitching and all these things like the platoon situation. Tellez is in the strong side of a platoon that's looking mighty good right now. So I didn't get him anywhere because I didn't bid high enough. There was people going crazy for Tellez. But what's your thoughts on Rowdy?
Yeah, I think you summarized it well. I had the same. I had lower bids for him, just wasn't as aggressive because first base, I tend to have some pretty strong options there and at the corner infield. But yeah, I mean, I think Jeff Erickson and Scott did a great job of covering this, but they faced 13 righties in a row, I think. And so that is the type of context, and knowing those things ahead of time when you FAAB, can really get you a couple super hot weeks. And that's what you could get from Tellez. So.
Yep, I'm with you there. So if you grabbed him, I'm all for it. Just know you might have to drop him again pretty soon, but ride it while you can because the dude's doing like every preseason. I fall in love with Tellez. I preach Tellez, and then he lets me down. And then he finishes every year strong. Like I feel it coming again this year. He's going to do it to me once again. I'm going to head into the offseason and go, see, look at this. Look at his barrel rates. Look at his hard hit rates. He does this. But he's played as a platoon player. That's like the reality of the situation. He needs a DH. He needs a team to be a DH on that actually has room for him. Like the Jays did not. Maybe next year the Brewers will have room for him if the baseball gets their stuff together, and that would be awesome. So we'll wait and see there. Luis Patino added 160 leagues, as high as 131. He's been pitching like they've been stretching him out. They made a point they wanted to stretch him out. They want to have him in the rotation this year in Tampa Bay. He pitched on Tuesday. I was watching it on my phone, not the actual video so much of it, but like watching the strikeout plot and everything. He was getting a ton of there's one point where he had like 56 pitches and 42 strikes, but it was like the third inning because guys were fouling it off and fouling it off and fouling it off. And Jason Collette got a hold of me on Twitter. We were talking back and forth. He said the broadcasters were talking about it very nicely because his final line was 5 innings, 5 hits, 3 runs, 2 homers, 2 walks, 3 Ks. He only got 3 Ks, but he had so many chances for strikeouts. The lefty dominating Seattle lineup was what got him. His slider's not going deep enough in, so they're fighting him off, which is what I kept seeing, like sliders low and in, foul ball, foul ball, foul ball, and then he'd hang one or he'd walk him or something. That's Patino's biggest thing. But with all that being said, I love the skill set. I think it's great. They're going to let him go 5+ innings. I think that's great. I need strikeouts in a big way, and when he's on, he can get a ton. Like if it's a righty-heavy lineup, strikeouts will be there. So I was not like super aggressive. I'm not aggressive on anybody, so I got a false statement. But I was putting like $5 to $10 out for Patino, and I got him like in 2 leagues. So I was intrigued with him.
Yeah, there's probably a lot of 12-teamers. I wasn't really in on Patino. I haven't been a huge fan. I mean, that start he had last week was absolutely phenomenal. Prior to that, he hadn't really shown like a ton of strikeout stuff, and his metrics weren't all that great. If you look at his previous 3 starts, 5 1/3, 4 earned runs, 4 Ks, 5 1/3, 5 earned runs given up, 5 strikeouts. He did have 6 and 3 1/3, but he gave up 4 earned runs. So before that Yankees outing, he really had not been, that impressive to me. So I wasn't that interested in him. I am interested to see how he does, though. I mean, he's obviously an incredible talent, and the Rays know how to develop their pitching. So it'll be interesting to see what he does moving forward. And certainly, it wasn't a great game today against the Mariners, but it also wasn't a terrible game.
Yeah, I just liked what we saw in AAA because he's only made – this was his 4th start since he got called back up. and his last 6 starts in AAA is 5 or more Ks in every start, 7 or more in 3 of those 6. So they're showing improvements. Like, see, he was doing something pitch mix. I don't know what, because I didn't follow AAA, but he had 41 Ks in 29 innings pitched. So there's at least some improvement of some sort, and I'm hoping that transitions by just letting him go. Because when they had him up earlier before that, it was like, okay, you're going to open. I'm like, well, that sucks. But now they've made a point. He's going to go 5 or 6 innings more often than not. And I'll give that a roll, because we've seen these young pitchers in Tampa Bay. It's just like they'll figure out how to use your stuff, and they're going to make it work. So I'm willing to give that a shot, especially for the cheap. A few others here. You mentioned Cole Salser. We've talked about him a few times because I was on him a few weeks ago. Baltimore, it's tough to see what they're going to do with closing, but his ratios and his strikeout stuff's great. So at worst, he helps you there, as you kind of mentioned earlier. Carson Kelly's back. He got picked up in a lot of places. Anthony Bender got picked up in a lot of places, even though him and Dylan Floro kind of, it's 1 and 2. You mentioned Floro. I think it's Floro. Those guys were picked up. What are some other guys that were added that kind of stood out to you? Because there was a bunch this past week.
Yeah, we covered a lot of the guys that I added. Sam Hilliard, I picked up in a couple leagues. Actually, I think just one league, but I had some bids in for him. Chaz McCormick was also.
Let's just go over your moves you made. It'll make it easier.
Yeah, why don't we do that? All right. My, let's see, FAAB results. All right, picked up Kyle Finnegan, dropped Daniel Hudson in one league. Oops, I'll go in order here. Added Rafael Ortega, dropped Shane Bieber. Now, this was a tough decision to make here. And I didn't drop Bieber in all my leagues, but I dropped him in the ones where I'm in an overall competition. And I need pitching. Because the thing with Bieber is he has just thrown the baseball. He threw the baseball once, and his arm was not feeling right afterwards. Yeah. And with Cleveland pretty much giving up the season, I would actually be surprised if he pitched again. I just wanted to give it one more week to see if he was progressing at all, but I wouldn't be surprised if they shut him.
To be fair, you can feel okay dropping Bieber when the robot dropped Jacob deGrom this week. So you can.
That's true. Okay, well, I had more courage than I have, which
I wouldn't
probably explains
but I
some
get
things. Yeah. Added Kyle Finnegan, dropped Daniel Hudson, added Sam Hilliard, dropped Garrett Hampson. And this was in a 15-teamer. Hampson just is not getting enough playing time, unfortunately. And it's unfortunate, but he's behind Hilliard now. He's behind, Tapia. He's behind Rodgers. They didn't trade Story. It's just really hard to see where he's going to fit in on a regular basis in this lineup. And being short side of the platoon just isn't it. And so he's just one of these guys that tends to just be on your bench. And he's kind of like a if I need him guy, but if your need him guy is not going to play, then you got to move on. So moved on from him. Added Ian Happ, dropped Luis Urias. Added Chris Stratton, dropped Tony Gonsolin. Number one, you just can't. After that start against Arizona, he just can't give you enough innings. He's just not reliable enough, and then he goes on the IL with shoulder inflammation. Chances are he never makes it back into that rotation this year. So I moved on. I actually messed up. I did not drop him in one of my main events, and I don't know how that got past me, but sometimes it happens when you have 12 FAAB leagues. I added Kyle Finnegan, dropped Pete Fairbanks, added Edward Oliveras, dropped JT Brubaker. This was a little bit of a tough drop for me. Brubaker, I've had a tough time starting him recently just because he gives up so many home runs and he doesn't go deep in it. So it's hard for him to get wins. But in a 15-teamer, I still think you hold on to him. But this league is I'm first in strikeouts by over 100. I'm first in wins and I need saves. And so it was just a matter where I'm only starting guys that I really feel good about now. And he wasn't going to be one of those guys. And next week he has a tough start, I think, against the Dodgers maybe. And so I'm just not going to work with him. Cole Salser I added, dropped Willie Castro. Added Kyle Finnegan, dropped Daniel Hudson. Added Kyle Finnegan, dropped Brett Gardner. Added Edward Oliveras, dropped Ryan Yarborough. This was a tough one as well. But Yarborough, he's at Baltimore, and he just hasn't done that great against Baltimore before. He's on the road. According to the Razzball player The Rasball tool, he's a -$1 guy this week, and then next week he's at Boston. So I wasn't going to use him the next 2 weeks, and so I moved on from him. Ross Stripling is another guy where he's done me okay. He's subject to some blowups. He's got Cleveland this week, but he wasn't going to be in my starting rotation. And then next week he's going up against Boston, and I just don't feel great about that one. So I moved on from him. I added Chris Stratton, which I don't feel great about that one either. Added Eloy, dropped Tony Gonsolin. It was 217, runner-up of 148. Added Chris Stratton, dropped Luis Urias. Added Andy Ibanez. Dropped Donovan Solano. Ibanez has 7 games. He's playing every day. He's hitting the middle of the Rangers lineup. And he's actually kind of nice. I mean, you look at his contact rates are higher than league average. Chase rate is pretty decent. He's also got a little bit of pop as well. Plays second, third, eligibility-wise. So added him this week. Kind of dug that one. I added him in a dynasty league.
I'll probably be looking to add that eligibility this week. I think that's a good add. I've been kind of staring at him in DFS, and he's starting to grow on me. So that's good. You got ahead of that one. That's very, very good move actually.
Oh, thanks. Eloy for 187, a backup of 71. That one hurts a little bit.
Man, they went cheap in your league.
I know. Not a lot of FAAB left in this particular league. Okay. Not a lot of FAAB left. The 2 people who have the most FAAB for some reason didn't spend it last week. I mean, maybe they're waiting for Chris Sale, but he's not available in this league. So,
man,
in my 9 major FAAB leagues, Chris Sale is available in just one of them. Yeah, guys have held on to him. Kyle Finnegan for Daniel Hudson. Chris Stratton for David Bednar.
At least we talked about that already. Alex Thistlewood asked you to talk about it. It's at the beginning of the show. So go back. We won't make Toby relive it twice.
It's at the beginning of the show. I had my reasons, and it's one of those things, right? It's not just recency bias. It's just you've got a 1-game sample of what you think they might do in a bullpen, and you've got to make decisions. And let's say you hold on to Bednar for the next week, and Stratton's the guy, then you miss out on Stratton.
Well, let's just think about it. It's the Pirates. Like, would you be shocked if somehow Stratton closes all of September?
I mean, to Stratton's credit today, he evened it out. He went 1 1/3, and he didn't give up any runs, so he's fine. It's just not as pretty as it is with Bednar there. And then I added Zach Eflin for $4, dropped Jose Suarez. And then in TGFBI, I added a bunch of different people, I think. But it's not loading here. Uh-oh.
Is it your turn? I was kidding.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
Let's see what we got here. Sorry, it shut down on me here. So I added Tyler Clippard, dropped Donovan Solano, added Chris Stratton, dropped Pavin Smith, added Spencer Patton, dropped Alex Cobb. Again, this is a league where I have just ridiculous pitching. Added ridiculous starting pitching, I should say. Brent Rooker, dropped John Nagowski. Rooker's playing every single day. Not available in most 15s, but available in most 12s. He's playing every day, hitting second for the Twins, and he's looked decent. A lot of strikeout, but he's the type of guy that can get hot. Added in 12-teamers, added Ian Kennedy, dropped Tony Gonsolin. Added Tyler Clippard. I dropped Yasmani Grandal, who I'd actually held on to because I have Eric Haas on that team, and I think JT Realmuto or Sal Perez is my other catcher. And Haas has just been absolutely killing it, so I don't really need Grandal. So Clippard, added Oliveras, dropped Eddie Rosario. This was a little bit of a tough one because Rosario, I think, is only a couple weeks out. But he's a couple weeks out. That situation in Atlanta is super crowded. They added Soler, Duvall, and Rosario, so I'm not even sure that Rosario is going to play every single day.
I don't think so.
And so I held on to him in 15s, but I dropped him in 12s. Added Miguel Rojas, dropped Josh Harrison in OCs where I had Trey Turner as my only shortstop. Added Kyle Finnegan, dropped Joakim Soria. Added Tyler Clippard, dropped Ranger Suarez. This is in a 12. I held on to Suarez in 15s because I actually think he's going to be a good starting pitcher when he gets up to that. He has 2 starts this week.
I want to know your thoughts on Ranger Suarez because I think I dropped him in a 12 where I needed some other help. Obviously, I need closers. That's why I had him to begin with. But I kind of had the same thought you did. Like even 3 innings of him could be good. Do you think they actually stretch him out? Or it seems like they're just going to kind of go really slow with him. So I don't know if we ever get more than like 3 to 4 innings out of Ranger Suarez.
I think he'll get there. I think one good thing is that he's efficient, generally speaking, with his pitches. Like he doesn't walk a lot of guys. I mean, he made it to 3 innings in 33 pitches this time around, which won't be the case every single time. I mean, it was a really stellar outing. I would say, he pitched 33 this past time. So maybe next time he gets up to, 45, 50. The time after that, he's at 60, 65. And then you start getting into the territory where whether you get to 5 or not is questionable. So I'll see how they handle him. He had 2 starts this week. I only started him in a league where wins was not an issue for me. So we'll see. I may move on from him next week in the 15s. I also want to just be a little leery. I don't trust Ian Kennedy at all. I added him, but we've already seen him give up 2 home runs. If you look at his away splits the last couple years, outside of he's pitched in Kansas City and then Texas, 2 pitcher-friendly parks from a home run perspective. It's really bad. I don't think he's that good. So I just want to make sure, like if he had blown the save yesterday, like he came close-ish to coming, I would not, what's weird is that they had finally kind of stabilized that bullpen a little bit, and now they're moving away from it, and we'll see how that works out for them. And then I added Ortega for Hosmer. I dropped Hosmer in a 12 just because I'm flush with first baseman in that league. I think I have like Gurriel, Hoskins, and Bell, something like that. And I just like them more than I like Hoskins for what I need. Finnegan for Gonsolin, Clippard for Hosmer, Oliveras for Rosario. So you can kind of see what I was doing in my FAAB leagues there. A lot of Finnegan, a lot of Stratton, a lot of Oliveras, a lot of dropping of the same guys too.
All right, for me and TGFBI, I got Finnegan, dropped Hansel Robles. I liked that one because I got him for 31, and the backup was 26, so that was kind of one of those that makes you feel good about life. So that's pretty good. I got Yadiel Hernandez for 13, dropped Chase Peterson. Ortega was grabbed by Bloomfield, so I didn't get that one. That sneaky guy. I got Nick. I grabbed Nick Senzel in a couple leagues because he's coming back. Pretty just speculating, hoping God. I got him for like $8 in this league. I dropped Christian Walker because he's been just horrific. I got Tyler Clippard for $6. Dropped Joakim Soria, and that was it, I believe. Oh, and that was this week too. I got Paulo Espino for $2. Dropped Colin McHugh. Espino's just one of those guys. Like I don't know. I got him. He was basically a backup bid on some other backup bids. So I got him. We'll see how that one plays out. But I like what he's doing. He's just a lot of pitch to contact, which can be scary at times. But he's been very, very efficient, and I need some wins. So I'm praying he can sneak those through there. So that was TGFBI for me. We go to the RotoWire Online Championship. I got Joe Ross for $3. I dropped Kyle Gibson in this one. 12-team league. I'm just kind of over Kyle Gibson. He goes out and throws a gym, which really stinks. But I went with Joe Ross. I think I like the strikeout upside that Ross brings over Kyle Gibson. That's what I really needed. So I went with Ross for $3. I will take that gamble and pray it works. I grabbed Josiah Gray for $3, dropped Jordan Holloway, and then I got Rafael Ortega for $2, dropped Tanner Houck, and that's it on that one. The Tanner Houck one's very disappointing. The Red Sox are killing me there. Talent's too good. In one of my satellite leagues, I got Bumgarner. Now I have 2 shares of Bumgarner this year. I got him for $21, dropped Jordan Holloway. Bumgarner's been great. Got Ortega for 17, dropped Garrett Cooper. RIP Garrett Cooper. I got Yadiel Hernandez for 17, dropped Chase Peterson. I need outfielders badly. That's why I also grabbed Nick Senzel for like $12, dropped Darren Ruff, which that's going to sting, but I'm doing the long play on. Like they face a lot of righties coming up, and once Belt's back very soon, I see that platooning a lot more there. And then I think I got Cal Quantrill for $3, dropped Ranger Suarez. That's the one I dropped Ranger Suarez in. So we'll see how Quantrill. I actually like what the improvements Quantrill's made. He's actually striking guys out now, which looks pretty good. So I'm going to roll the dice there with Cleveland. Again, hopefully Bieber doesn't come back. And then my other satellite got Rafael Ortega for 17, dropped Garrett Cooper. Yadier Hernandez dropped Aaron Savale. Elias Diaz dropped Francisco Mejia. Pretty pumped on that one for $4. And then that should be about it for me. Yeah, that's it. So pretty much similar guys, similar drops. We'll see. The Cal Quantrill one, I forgot all about that. I'm hoping the improvements we've seen over his last recent starts continues to go. He's changed his pitch mix up, and it's led to more strikeouts. So I'm a big fan of that improvement. And the Espino one literally was like, I just know I needed a pitcher. We'll see how long he's $2, so we'll see how long he sticks around. But he's actually been very good. I'm just nervous. Like the blow up game is going to be a bad blow up when it happens. It's going to be ugly. So
yeah, I kind of like Espino too. I mean, if you look at
like I've had him in Barf for like over a month because like with Barf, I'm going to vote next year if we just can lower the ILs on there because there's no one on the waiver wires. Like I've been dead to rights all season. I've been dead to rights because my whole team's injured. I've literally rostered Espino for over a month in that league.
IL slots are brutal.
Yeah,
honestly,
it kills the whole FAAB process. It's freaking rough.
They're brutal. Yeah, I mean with Espino, like I think the thing that I like a lot about him, he doesn't strike out a ton of guys. Absolutely true, but he doesn't walk guys either. 4.5% walk rate. You know, so yes, you always are in danger of having BABIP games. He's got a 244 BABIP, which certainly will change, as will the 82% strand rate with the type of strikeout ability he has. So it's a little bit tough, but a 14.2% K- walk rate is league average. And so, you could do a lot worse, I think, if you're putting him in the right matchups.
Yeah, I need wins. I need strikeouts. I knew he wasn't going to give me that, but like if he's going to give me a win, he's going to help my ratios out because that's how only way he's going to win. So it's kind of one of those right matchups things like you mentioned. Get him now before I think he's got a 2-step next week, maybe. Maybe that's what it was. So I'll just put a bid on him and see what happens. I wanted to get, I believe it's first. Let me just look this up real quick. He's starting on Wednesday for the Carlos Hernandez of Kansas City. I was very intrigued with what I saw in his first start, but he got picked up. He was like Espino was like my tertiary bid to Hernandez, where Hernandez got grabbed everywhere. I kind of like what we saw there, but didn't get any of that. What I would have loved to have seen is, I don't know if you got to catch it at all, but on Tuesday night, because of all the COVID issues the Yankees are having for like the 4th time this year, Luis Eel, the G is silent, it sounded like on the broadcast. He looked filthy, absolutely filthy, making his pro debut, but he already got sent back down tonight. So that sucks. But he was throwing high 90s with a nice little slide piece. Like, that looked really good. I looked at his profile going into the game, and he had like a massive home run to fly ball in AAA. His AA numbers look great. So I was kind of like, we'll see what he's got. Watching that game, he was good. So we'll see. See what happens.
Yeah, it's been brutal. I mean, Cole got COVID right after lock.
Yeah.
Now Jomo has COVID, and for Cole, if you have Cole on your team, he had Seattle and Baltimore both at home for his starts. And then you have, and then Trevor Rodgers was put on the family medical list.
Yep.
And so he's probably not starting this week either. And I have Cole and Rodgers on one main event team. That's my best main event team this week. And I'm like, oh goodness.
And then on Tuesday,
I mean, obviously hope everything's okay with them, but
as we record right now, earlier today on Tuesday, Matt Barnes got put on the COVID IL. So if you guys had fun last season in the 60-game season, pretend that's what we're about to have now, because it does not feel it's going to be one of those.
It's a good point. That's how much time we have left in the season.
It's going to be about the same little run now.
COVID is, I mean, where I am, we're seeing case rates that are at equally as high as peak. And I know that other places are seeing that as well. So
it's going to be fun. So I'm being very sarcastic there, people. We have one listener question for the week. You guys slacked on us this week. No, I'm just kidding. I understand. You can't do it every week. You guys were awesome last week. But we got one. Oh, Alex, I thought I saw something too. Alex said Barnes has since tested negative. Barnes is the same one in the preseason. Remember during draft season, supposedly got COVID or whatever, and then all of a sudden everyone drafts out of Vino, and then the next day Barnes is fine again. He's got something going on in that system. I don't know what it is, but something to keep in mind. But we have one listener question here. Little Book of Calm says, in a 5x5 roto league with a solid lead in strikeouts and close in ratio categories, how aggressive are you at curating your starts? At this point, am I considering sitting every starting pitcher at Cincinnati, at Colorado, at Toronto versus Astros, Dodgers, stuff like that to conserve his ratios? But that's almost 20% of the league. Is that too careful? It's a great question.
It's a great question. Yeah. I mean, I think yes, but I wouldn't do it the same way. For me, the way I think about it is, it's not necessarily, it depends on who the pitcher is. Like if I have my ace and they're going up against the Dodgers, I still throw them. If I have at Colorado is different. Like a good example is like Sandy Alcantara. Sandy Alcantara heading into this week, it looked like he was going to throw. Well, NFBC had him. RotoWire had it correct, but NFBC had him throwing Monday and Saturday. So he would have had home against the Mets and at Colorado. I would have started him for that double start right there. But I would not. I've taken him out of my lineup when he's at Colorado. He's obviously gotten blown up by the Dodgers, but I would still probably throw him at least at home against the Dodgers. Even Houston, like Houston's lineup is very good, but the top half of their lineup is really good. The back half of it is a little soft right now with the injuries and stuff like that they have. So I generally I'll throw my aces regardless of the situation. And then I'll play it more conservative depending on, how big the league is. But one thing that I would highly recommend doing, which is what I'm doing in a situation where I'm in a similar spot, is use some of these really good ratio relief guys to bolster your saves, or just, like Scott Barlow's a good example. Cole Salser is a good example where he might get saves, but he's probably going to get you Ks. Because like a good example is with Yarbrough. One of the reasons why I dropped him, when you look at him, if he's only got one start in a week, he averages 3, 4, maybe 5 strikeouts. Now, on a good week for a reliever who's elite, I can get 5 strikeouts. I can get 4 strikeouts. I can get 3 strikeouts. I won't get it every week, but I can be pretty confident that I'm going to get 3, and I feel a lot more confident that I'm going to get better ratios than I am with Ryan Yarbrough. And so at that particular point in time, yes, the win likelihood with Yarbrough is higher, but I can still get that with some relief pitchers. And so that's what I would recommend doing. That's what I'm doing. Hopefully it works out, but you gotta be careful though too, because these gaps, like if the guy behind you starts starting 9 starting pitchers, that gap is going to close very closely. So you got to be monitoring that and making sure that doesn't that they don't creep up on you and you don't have time enough to adjust in response.
Yeah, don't get too cute with it, because strikeouts, like you said, guys can go stream like 4 2-start guys, and even if they don't care about the ratios, can go rack up strikeouts pretty quickly. So that can jump in a hurry. It all kind of depends on what you have going on. But yeah, you pretty much, I say 95% of the time you're starting your aces, barring something completely crazy taking place. So you're doing that. And then it's like Toby said, we've been talking about it for a while. That's why I'll say things on Twitter and guys give me a hard time when like, you really started this guy, like a 2-start pitcher. Oh, I need it for, like, they always say, well, I have to do this. I'm like, you don't have to do anything. Like, you have to know the consequences going into it. And sometimes it just is not, the juice is not worth the squeeze. I would rather go and play middle relievers, or I'd rather go play Paulo Espino and do something like that. Like there's different, and everyone's different. And, people are successful doing different things. So that's what's fun about the game we play. But I am a lot like Toby on this one. I'm very cautious with my pitchers unless it's like, your ratios are shot, which is not your case, Book of Calm. So you're not there. Like if your ratios are shot, and just go YOLO. I want strikeouts. I want chances at wins. I don't care. But if you have the good ratios, do exactly what Toby says. Like be very careful with it. Throw relievers out there. That's something I've preached since the beginning of the year, basically. If you want, I have no problem playing those like openers or relievers that get you, maybe by the end of the week, get you 4 to 5 innings. Like I'm totally cool with that. So yeah, that's the way to go. And it's going to happen a lot more this year because you're seeing a lot of young pitchers getting called up. They're not going to go deep into games. There's going to be a handful of guys throwing like the 6th and 7th innings a lot. They might do that twice a week, and they might sneak into some wins that way. And that's going to be something to definitely keep an eye on, like usage patterns. Ryan Roof of RotoWire, Greg Jewett does his column for stuff. They will keep you posted on stuff like that. And it's going to be very, very useful down the stretch here with all the craziness that's about to ensue for 2 months. So I'd highly recommend that. All right, Toby, that'll wrap us up. Any final thoughts as we have about 7.5 weeks to go?
No, I don't think so. I just say, keep plugging away. There's going to be a lot of changes that happen, in September with September call-ups, with injuries, with COVID, keep some of that FAAB around for that. The bids are going to be lower now that most people have exhausted a lot of their FAAB. And also pay attention to the closer rules. Like for me, I missed out maybe on Stratton. Stratton is probably a miss at this point. Maybe not. If they play high leverage, like maybe they're doing now, which they hadn't done previously, which is why I thought Stratton was the guy, then who knows, he might have an opportunity. But there's still a lot of closers left on the waiver wire. Like I saw Spencer Patton wasn't picked up everywhere. In shallower leagues, Dylan Floro wasn't picked up everywhere. So there's still an opportunity to get some of those guys. So make sure that you're searching your league and tracking those guys if you still do need saves.
Yep, 100% with you on that. There's going to be a lot of moving parts, a lot of people moving to football, a lot of people with no money. Joe Adell got called up finally. He had a great game on Tuesday, so that'll be one of the fun bids on Sunday where he's still available. He's kind of, I don't think people, it'll be interesting to see how many places he's available in. It really will be, because if people didn't hold on to Bobby Witt Jr., we'll see. And Bobby Witt Jr. is crushing it. He's coming up soon. So that's one of those you can speculate on if you can. He's going to be a fun player, especially with the Adalberto Mondesi problems going on there in Kansas City, who's supposed to start a rehab, but we'll see how that goes. Bregman's got a setback. You mentioned Bieber. Why pitch him the rest of the year for the Guardians or whatever they're going to be called now, because that might not be happening. It's going to be
check the website before you name the team.
Like, come on! Like, I checked to see if Benched with Bubba was taken before I started a podcast. Like, who are, like, it makes sense the way you run your organization. It makes total sense. Like, to miss something so simple like that. But it's going to be a wild ride. We're going to say it pretty much every week when we watch the transactions and the ups and the downs. But it's fun and it's a roller coaster. Like, like myself, at least, like I'll give like guys like Jameson Tyon a hard time. He had a great July. Like, it's such a long season. Things can change. Like, don't be fickle in your ways. The best thing. That's the best advice I could try to give right now is just because one guy burned you before or looked bad earlier this year, they make changes. So, like, just see how things fluctuate through there. But check out Toby on Twitter at BatFlipCrazy. I'm at BD Entric. We'll be back to you guys next week. But this was Bubba and the Bat Flip, episode 91. See y'all later.